I played Division I NCAA basketball, so I traveled a lot. My entire life revolved around this. I was in my junior year in university. I'd been single for about a year after my high school girlfriend, and I finally broke up after 3 years. I checked that relationship off as my learning experience, and I now knew what to look for in my next girlfriend. The next woman I chose to have a relationship with, I would most likely marry and start my future with. I had my eye on this girl at my school. We will call her Lisa. I saw Lisa around the collegiate athletic facility, the university team's training grounds and locker rooms. Lisa ran for the track team and was damn good. The various athletic teams often had parties, and I knew that the first one I saw her at, I would introduce myself, chat her up a bit, and see where it led. Soon enough, I saw Lisa at one of these parties, and we passed each other on the stairs. We made eye contact, and she smiled at me. I sparked a conversation with her, and after going back and forth a bit, we exchanged numbers. We began the classic American style of flirting, where we constantly hinted things back and forth indirectly. We slowly progressed the relationship in this manner for weeks, sending texts back and forth, hinting that we were interested in each other but also playing it cool to not let the other person know we had a crush on them. At the time, she was on a break with her current boyfriend, who was a popular player on the football team. She ended up leaving him completely to date me. This should have been a red flag, obviously, but remember I had severe hubris at the time. Her leaving him to date me just gave me a superiority complex. I was playing well in sports, and if she was willing to leave this guy for me, then she would never leave me for another guy. I can't express how much I was into Lisa. I was addictively attracted to her and had that weird feeling of, I can't believe my crush is actually into me too. I was so drowned and blinded by my crush on her, I missed so many red flags. Our relationship began progressing really fast because of this. I really didn't do a proper inventory on why I liked her so much. Fast forward 8 months. We are together officially. Lisa has her own athlete's dorm room, but I was a couple of years older than her and was working full-time during the summer and part-time during school. I had my own apartment near campus, and Lisa was basically living with me. She would even stay there when I was out of town, which was like 3 or 4 days a week. We were in season, and the team was flying all over the country. Me and Lisa were deeply in love. Regardless, at the end of the season, I had planned 2 massive back-to-back parties. One was for my teammate's birthday Friday night and then my birthday Saturday night. They just happened to be one day after the other and luckily landed on a Friday and Saturday night. Me and Lisa got drunk Friday night and had some unprotected sex. Lisa kept a period tracking calendar on her phone. She was asleep, and I drunkenly remembered she always marked down in her calendar when we had unprotected sex, so she knew if she would be worried if she missed her period. She missed her period often because she was an athlete. My inebriated brain thought she would put it on her calendar now because we would forget the next day since we were so messed up. So I woke her up and said, "Can you put in the calendar that we had unprotected sex?" At this point it was like 5 a.m., and we were in that 5 a.m. kind of drunk where you're mostly just tired. She unlocked her phone and opened the app, and before she could even do it, she fell back asleep. So I took the phone while it was still unlocked and proceeded to try and figure out how to put it in the calendar myself. This wasn't one of those stories where I went through her phone looking for something and subsequently found it. In this case, I was innocently trying to navigate this period calendar while I was drunk and was not suspicious at all. When I looked at the period calendar app on Lisa's phone, I saw all kinds of little markers on different days of each month. Each marker was a different color. I opened one to see what the color coding meant. I saw that red was obviously for her period, and then there were also black markers that showed when she had unprotected sex. This is when my heart sank into my stomach. This calendar was peppered with black markers. It looked like a checkerboard with only a handful of red pieces left and all the black ones. There were black markers on dates that I was in a different city playing basketball. I proceeded to open all the black markers going back for our entire relationship. We did not have unprotected sex very often, maybe once or twice a month. She had written the names of the guys she had hooked up with in the notes section of black markers. There were a total of 4 guys listed in the calendar. Some months, there were almost a dozen of those black markers. Sometimes there were 2 in one day. Looking back on this, I wonder if there were more unlisted men that I didn't see because she only kept track of the guys and times she didn't use protection. In almost every story I hear of infidelity, it involves the discovery of text messages, being informed by a friend, or the classic coming home early and catching your partner red-handed. I, on the other hand, discovered a well-documented ledger of almost every time she cheated and didn't use protection. Amongst the 4 guys I discovered, one of them was her ex cheating on me with him was a common occurrence. There was some other unknown guy she was also clearly sleeping with regularly. The last 2 people were one-night stands. I proceeded to look through Lisa's texts and calls and found nothing. However, at the time, Android phones had a folder where you could see deleted texts but not the contents of the messages. She had thousands of deleted texts and calls, but I couldn't see what they said. But I saw the numbers and did a quick Facebook search, matching one with her ex, in addition to something like half a dozen other dudes. The worst part was I found 2 of my teammates, one guy I was actually pretty close with. I just put the phone down after a few minutes. The evidence was overwhelming. The more I looked at the phone, the more my insides began to hurt. I felt so defeated. I can't fully describe the feeling, but I'm sure anyone reading this who caught a significant other cheating knows what I'm talking about. I felt so stupid for trusting her and having no suspicions of her. I proceeded to leave my apartment and go for a long walk. I'd never felt the emotions that were coming up and didn't know how to process them. I knew I was going to get my revenge, I just didn't know how yet. My roommate/teammate and best friend, who we will call Bono was a 7-foot-tall Russian. Bono called me shortly after I started my walk. I answered and he asked where I was. I asked him to keep this between us and told him what happened. He stayed on the phone and went into my room. I heard him, in his Russian accent, yell at her, "You cheated on OP." Then I faintly heard her audibly say something in the background and him yelling at her to get out of the apartment. After hearing some scuffling, Bono got back on the line and said, "Yo, she's gone. Come back and let's talk." I headed back home, and me and Bono went over what had happened. He made his best attempts to comfort me and said, "Tonight is your birthday. We're going to get messed up and find you some other women. F her. I never liked her anyway." Me and Bono went out for breakfast. I was still a little drunk. My phone was blowing up with calls and texts from Lisa. I told her I saw everything on her phone and I can't stand to speak with her or look at her. She kept trying to convince me to let her come to my birthday party. I made it clear I didn't want her there. She clearly was concerned about exactly what Bono suggested to me earlier when we chatted. I don't remember much of what happened that night. I remember telling my teammates and friends that me and Lisa were done when they asked why she wasn't at the party. I didn't tell them why, though. I also didn't show them that I was affected by it in any way and just played it cool. I tried to keep the focus on the party. The revenge, so this is one of those revenge stories where it was only half planned. I knew I wanted to get revenge on Lisa for hurting me so much, but I kind of just improvised as opportunities came up. I didn't care what collateral damage I caused as long as I accomplished my mission of hurting Lisa. I was sitting at my computer later that next week, skimming Facebook when I saw the profile of one of her track teammates on my feed. That's when I had my first vengeful idea. I decided I was going to send her a message and see if she took the bait. I didn't have proof she hooked up with my teammates, but she was clearly trying to hide conversations between them, so I was going to see how many people close to her I could hook up with. Lisa's teammate had a boyfriend, but I thought, clearly everyone cheats, let's see if it's true. I proceeded to do the flirty social media dance with her, the one where I like a couple of her photos, she likes a couple of mine back. I shot her a message and bam, she's at my house in my bed about a week later. I proceeded to do something similar with Lisa's other teammates, her 4x4 relay team. Coincidentally, 2 of the 3 girls I hooked up with had boyfriends and subsequently cheated on them with me, which gave me some real mixed emotions. It stroked my broken ego and also made me bitter and sad. This is such a typical story of, while fighting monsters, I became a monster. This actually became my go-to strategy because it accomplished 2 things in my messed up mind. It exposed a cheater, but more importantly, if they were willing to cheat on their boyfriends, they would be more secretive about it, which meant the drama that would ensue when it came out would be elevated, and B, it made me feel better about Lisa cheating because it proved it wasn't me that was the problem. It was women that were the problem. I know it's messed up, but that's what I thought back then. I started to collect something from every girl that I hooked up with, like a bra, a pair of panties, or some jewelry, etc. Not for some creepy reason, but this is important later and was part of my plan. Sometimes I didn't even have to try. One girl left a pair of very distinguishable shoes. I knew Lisa would know whose shoes they were. They belonged to the girl that Lisa's ex-boyfriend rebounded with after Lisa and him broke up, which highly upset her because it was her friend. Now it would upset her more because that same girl slept with both of her ex-boyfriends. I especially tried to collect items if it was something that I knew Lisa could distinguish, like a sweater from the women's track team with her teammate's name on it. After some time, I'd collected a boatload of stuff. After a couple of months, one of Lisa's teammates' boyfriends found out about me and his girlfriend. It started a big explosive series of events with her and her teammates. This led to all of them finding out about one another's promiscuity. The drama was massive. Even their coaches had to get involved. It got so bad. This made me feel so powerful in such an evil yet satisfying way. I fell in love with the destruction I was causing. The most awesome part about all of it was that same week, the athletics PR team had put massive posters of me all over campus, promoting the next game. They were everywhere. Some of the posters took up the entire sides of buildings, so Lisa and her friends had to see me all over campus every day while this drama was erupting all around them. I felt like a triumphant dictator. It was glorious and pathetic all at the same time. Their coach even proceeded to have a serious meeting with the compliance department and my team's coaches. My coaches literally laughed at her, saying, "This seems like an internal issue, but OP hasn't done anything illegal or broken any school policy, so there's nothing we can do." This infuriated the women's track coach. Their team had fallen apart. Their national ranking began to plummet. Then Lisa's coach even got in trouble for being caught tearing down some of the smaller posters of me on campus in a raging temper tantrum. I loved all of it. I continued to add fuel to the fire, posting photos of being with girls, smiling, being happy every chance I could on Facebook and Instagram. But under it all, I was bitter. I was so deep into my new mindset, I'd already forgotten the kind-hearted, naive kid I used to be. I hated my old self because I let some girl emasculate me. I was so full of self-pity. Looking back at it, it's depressing. No one really knew, though, because I played the cool guy attitude in front of people. There was even a girl on campus on one of the sports teams who claimed that she was pregnant with my kid after I pretended to like her the same way I did with all the other girls on Lisa's team. As soon as we hooked up, I moved on. It's a long story, but it turned out she wasn't pregnant. But the news or press that came from that further dug the knife deeper into Lisa's side. I left a trail of women I deceived and relationships I destroyed. I feel bad now, but at the time I didn't care because they were equally at fault in my eyes since they were cheating on their boyfriends or sleeping with their friend's ex. Quickly, girls became wary of me, plus I was running out of potential targets. I know now that I was being an awful human being and I was going after girls that weren't even friends or on the track team with Lisa but were just around her in daily life. For example, her classmates as well as her own family. I even flirted with her sister, who was married with a kid, and I almost succeeded. She was down, but Lisa's dad found out about it and put a stop to it before anything happened. I wanted Lisa to know I was everywhere and constantly remind her how she messed up in my eyes. This was all her fault, and she unleashed this fury of chaos upon herself. She should never have messed with me like that. Lisa had to take an extended medical leave because of her depression and mental health issues she was experiencing from the whole situation. She began to look extremely unhealthy. The whole mess was torturing her, and the more she hurt, the better I felt. At this point, I'd already inflicted more damage than she did to me, but I'd become addicted to the feeling of power. I spent zero time processing my emotions or moving on from what happened. All I wanted was more revenge, and I couldn't stop. After weeks of ignoring Lisa's texts and calls, she finally got a hold of me by showing up to my apartment unannounced late at night. She was there to pick up some stuff she left from when she lived there to take home. She was actually a local, and her parents lived close by. She was still on her medical leave and no longer staying on campus but rather with her parents. I told her I would bring her stuff to her parents' house that weekend, but I couldn't let her in because I had company, which I did, but it wasn't one of her teammates or friends. Unfortunately, I then took all the items I collected from all the girls over the weeks. There were probably like 8 or 9 things from different girls, including her teammates, and threw her belongings along with Lisa's stuff into big black trash bags. I took the bags to her house and then called Lisa's dad. I told him I left her stuff on his porch and to inform his daughter. 15 minutes after I got off the phone with Lisa's dad, I got a call from Lisa. I answered because I wanted to hear her reaction to having all these girls' stuff mixed in with hers. She was sobbing uncontrollably. It sounded like that half-crying, half-mumbling thing people do when they're hysterical. She wasn't even angry, just desperately begging me to stop my tyranny. I just smiled and basked in the glory of hearing her hurt. I responded, "Why were there other guys in our relationship? You mixed them into our relationship like I mixed other girls' stuff into your stuff." It was the perfect little ironic metaphor.